Welcome. This is the Jenkins User Experience Special Interest Group. Thanks for joining. And let's go ahead with topics that are on my list. A question about Google Summer of Code project proposals, summary of Jenkins releases, Yahoo UI removal, Jenkins Content Security Project, Jenkins Content Security Policy Project, recent UI topics, and upcoming in the next LTS baseline. If Jan is here, we may ask him to summarize the dashboard survey. Any other items that need to be on our agenda? Okay, great. So first topic then, I think, Bruno, this may have been a question from you or prompted by you as
Yes.
part of Google Summer of Code. So why don't you go ahead and introduce the idea to us or the concept, and let's discuss.
Yeah, so the Google Summer of Code is a period of time during the summer where students, or I would say young people, young professionals, can try and help open source projects and communities by learning and giving some help to the project. So we have the concept of a mentor, a lead mentor, co-mentors to help, and mentees, the young people that we have the project. It's been more than 10 years, I think, Mark. We've been doing within the Jenkins community, the Google Summer of Code. And I've been there for 2 years or so and have seen very successful projects along the line. Recently, Chris Stern asked if we could have something along regarding the UI or UX, and there was also a potential mentor who asked if there was a project regarding UX UI, and we also talked together about that. And we don't really have, for the time being, a project that would be a good fit for GSOC, and we are even wondering if that kind of project is a good idea for GSOC itself, because it's not like if you were to start with plugins or maybe even the Jenkins core or add a new feature to Jenkins or to the Jenkins infra. You have to be already knowledgeable to start something with the UI UX in Jenkins. So even if we could find a lead mentor and commenters, we are not sure to find the right mentee to do the job. But nonetheless, if anyone has an idea or if anyone wants to be a mentor for a UI UX project, of course, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so project ideas are certainly welcomed. They go into a pool where the organization admins ultimately decide which projects to submit to Google and which not, right, Bruno? So it's possible that an idea might be suggested which won't be accepted, but an idea without a mentor certainly won't be proposed to Google, right? That's
No, indeed.
good. All
Yeah,
right,
we
thanks.
have already a set of ideas that are about to be published, but anyone could add an idea. But as you said, if there is no mentor attached to this idea, then it's a no-go.
Right.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks. Very good. No project idea will be submitted to Google without, and actually it's really a mentor team, multiple mentors, right? Because we've learned that we're much more likely to succeed if we have 2+ mentors on a project.
2 + 3 is better. Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Great. All right. Next topic, questions from others on Google Summer of Code. Okay, next topic then, Jenkins releases. So we just released Jenkins 2.484 weekly. Things seem to be proceeding well on the weekly line. 2.479.1 released last week. This is the first Jenkins LTS to require Java 17. No Java 11 support any longer. It's also the first to deliver Spring Security 6, Jakarta EE9, and Jetty 12. The group of them are a significant upgrade, and we're watching the bug tracker very closely. And thus far, it looks quite smooth. Certainly, there have been some bumps, there have been some surprises, but they're relatively few and minor. Um, for example, the LDAP plugin must be upgraded concurrently. It's in the documentation, but we've had users who didn't read the documentation and bumped into that problem. The next release on that line is scheduled for the 27th of November. Chris Stern is the release lead, thanks to Chris, and has already created the release checklist. And we had an action item or a proposal to blog the announcement of the new Java requirement and suggest that people use Java 21 instead of Java 17. I like that idea. It just hasn't been done yet. That's one where if we've got a volunteer, we could get a blog post out. I'm open to any. Any questions or concerns on Jenkins releases?
No, thank you.
Okay, Yahoo UI removal. This one is really nice. So Marcus Winter and Tim Jacomb are discussing when and how we remove Yahoo UI from Jenkins core. We've got 2 plugin releases remaining. I think one was EC2 and I don't remember the other. Before we've hit the threshold that plugins with more than 1,000 installations are all resolved, have all stopped using Yahoo UI. So one of the suggestions from Tim suggested, let's see, what was it? His suggestion was to, I've got it on my screen, just a minute. It was switch the feature flag. So today there's a feature flag that can be enabled to switch off Yahoo UI, switch the feature flag so that people could still enable Yahoo UI to default without Yahoo UI, then switch it off completely after a few weeks. And that's one. The other would be just switch it off, just remove it and acknowledge that it's been removed. So the discussion is happening in the Gitter chat channel. That's the place for others to make their voices heard. Any questions or comments there?
Not really. Just that Gitter is not the best place to keep track of things because it's moving pretty fast, I would say, depending on the channel. But maybe Discourse would be better. But anyway, if all the people dealing with that are in Gitter, then let's go to Gitter.
Well, and I think they're open to, I'm sure they're open to move the conversation wherever. If it needs to be a persistent conversation, no problem. It's just I happen to see it mentioned there. The UX SIG is relatively low traffic. And
It is.
so that's, in fact, maybe let me put a link here in the chat channel. There we go. All right, good. Anything else?
No, thanks.
Okay, Jenkins Content Security Policy Project. So this one, Bruno, you did the blog post on it. Maybe we could have you act as the voice to give us a summary.
Well, I will try to. Thank you, Mark. So this has been project funded by the Alpha Omega Foundation, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and they want to address issues within open source projects regarding to security. So they fund some projects they find interesting in order to get a better level of security in those projects. So Jenkins is one of the many projects that are being funded by the Alpha Omega Foundation. So you, Mark, proposed quite a few different things to do within Jenkins. And one of the things that got their attention was about CSP. So the content security policy, because there have been some problems already detected by the Jenkins security team. regarding the CSP, and Basil had already some ideas in order to clean everything up. So thanks to the Alpha Omega Foundation, we were able to have the help of Shlomo Dahan and Yaroslav Afenkin for 3 months in order to get rid of as many CSP problems as we can in the most important Jenkins plugins during the 3 months time period. And we are already done with the first month, and it's pretty encouraging. The ATH show that we have gotten rid of most of the errors that were in the ATH detected regarding to CSP. It has been drastic, frankly. That's an awesome work for the time being. And Basil, Yaroslav, and Shlomo have already tackled with, I think, the plugins down to 20,000 installations or so. And I think this week they are targeting the 10K installation plugin. So it's progressing really quickly and it's pretty much encouraging.
It is, for me, it's
of course. Yeah.
This is a great story that you're telling. It really is impressive what Yaroslav and Shlomo have done with leadership from Basel, that we're getting very nice improvements, getting us ready for a future when we may be able to enable content security policy more widely, a more restrictive content security policy more widely. Yeah,
but
so go ahead.
don't get too excited for the rest of the time we have, because when you're going down to the 10K installation and more, you will find some plugins that are way more outdated than the most installed ones. So there will be some preliminary work regarding the modernization of the plugin before tackling the CSP problems. So this, the pace will be slower in the coming weeks, unfortunately, but we knew that.
Right. That's very practical, right? An outdated plugin that needs to be modernized is a risk in and of itself. So that's yet another form of risk. Great. Anything else you wanted to highlight there?
No, thank you, Mark.
Okay, so there is a linked sheet that shows current progress so that anyone can see how things are going. And what you see here is the green means a pull request has been submitted and merged. This orange color is merged, if I remember right, also
and
released.
I think.
Right, merged and
Right.
released. Okay. The orange color tells us pull request submitted, not yet merged, or not yet released. Or let's call it pull request submitted, not yet released.
Yeah, and yellow must be request submitted. Oh, I can't remember. Okay, green is good.
Right, exactly. And that's where we're headed, is we want to see more green. That's great.
Hello, Jan.
Welcome, Jan. Thanks for joining.
Hey, sorry I was late.
No, much appreciated having you here. So we were just finishing our topic on Jenkins CSP, on content security policy, and seeing how it's progressing. Given who the audience is, I think it's a good time now for a switch to recent UI topics. And Jan, you're probably a great voice to tell us how things are looking there, or what the thoughts are. So I had Remove Yahoo UI, and there I saw a conversation between Marcus Winter and Tim Jacomb about, hey, what's the next step? Then there was use command palette for search. And this one, I think, has an open question that Daniel Beck had asked of one of the commenters that now hasn't had an answer for a couple of months. Do you have any insights you wanted to share, Jan?
Don't really. Only thing for this, sorry, it's been a while. Again, not really sure how many plugins do actually interact with search, and if the ones that do, are they actually widely used? I don't know. Let's see. I'll ping the commenter again, see if we can get a response from him.
Okay, great. Now, I had listed these others. Are there some that you would prefer we discuss first, Jan? I've got keyboard shortcut tooltips, GC content viewing, margins. Are there any others you'd like to be sure we discuss?
None at the moment, no.
Okay, so on the keyboard shortcut tooltips, this one I think really does just need additional reviews. It's got 2 reviews, Kevin
Yeah.
and Tim, and that means it's been security approved. We just need a
Hmm.
few more checks to say it, and then we merge it.
Yes. I don't think there's anything left to do on this one, um, unless Daniel raises an issue. But I think myself and Tim have both tried it, and it was all fine.
Great. Well, and since Kevin has done the review from the security team, that feels really good. This
Hmm.
next one on GZ content viewing was more complicated in that I think we really want this to be done as an extension point, right? Not so there's more implementation work needed from the submitter. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that one sits as it is. And I had seen one that had been around for a long time, but had relatively recent activity, I think even from you on margins in help. Anything
Mhm.
you want to highlight here? I think your comment here was a week or two
Ah,
ago.
I wanted to take a look at that one, to be honest. It's been a busy month.
I certainly understand. Absolutely. Good. All right. Any other topics you wanted there on active work?
Um, Nothing from me. I think Tim's closed a few recently, so the number should be a bit smaller than last time.
Yeah, it's actually quite an improvement. Last time we
Mm.
met, it was 18 open with the web UI label. Now we're down
Hmm.
to 13. And now that means I haven't done my job in gathering out all the things that have arrived since then. So I saw this one has arrived
Hmm.
from past discussions. So it will be in the next LTS baseline, the one in February of 2025. But I've got more to extract. And maybe you want to talk to us about the branch API pull request you submitted that's now been merged. I love what
Yes.
you've done. Please tell us more.
Yeah, no, this was, I think from the form that we'll be talking about after, this was like the number one request. And especially with developers that I've worked with, um, it's a massive pain not seeing your actual pull request titles in Jenkins. So seeing some like random number doesn't really mean a great deal. So I had a look into the branch API for this, see if there was an easy way of doing it, and it turns out there already was. Like, there was an existing trait you could use to use it, but seemingly no one knew it existed. Um, so we've just made that trait the default. Um, yeah, it seems to be working well. There was one comment about the length of kind of pull request titles, but I think Tim potentially has put up a fix for that, so you can also disable it now if you like as well.
Oh, good. Okay, so Tim,
I believe it was. I'll have to double check.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. Tim posted it like yesterday, and it's just been merged.
Ah, very good. Okay, so the branch API gets a new release that will
Mhm.
help it. Very good. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Very good. Now, Jan, anything else on upcoming and next LTS baseline?
Um, Not as far as I know. I mean, hopefully the command palette makes it in soon. Um,
Right.
that'd be nice. I think it's been open for about 2 years now, which is very much entirely my fault. But fingers crossed.
Well, and it is a removal of another use of Yahoo UI, so
Yeah.
another win. Great. Now, we had done a survey in the past. I'm not
Hmm.
sure. Are you at a point where you'd like to summarize what you've learned from that survey or?
I can just give a quick glance at the results if you'd like.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Um,
Let me stop sharing. You want to just share your screen?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Do, 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 do. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Maybe.
Hmm.
you can see my forms, hopefully.
Can see it just great.
Awesome, great. So yeah, just for those that didn't know, posted a form, it's been quite a while ago now, asking for a kind of views on the Jenkins dashboard, kind of going over each item that's by default in the table, and also asking, hey, is there anything else that you'd like to be added or tweaked? So just kind of going through the responses, we've had 17 responses, which is really good. Status symbol is kind of unsurprisingly really popular, right?
Okay,
People,
and so 5 means really, really, really want to keep it. Please never
yeah,
remove it. I would have to remove. Okay, good, thanks. And 1
yeah.
means
So
fine to have it lost. Great.
yeah, they were labeled at one point, but they're not here now for some reason. But yeah, 5 is like essential.
Ah,
1
got it.
is not useful. So yeah, status symbol, kind of unsurprisingly, people really like it and it's really helpful. Lever symbol is much more of a mixed bag. I think I myself probably voted quite low for this one. Kind of quite vague in what it means and does it offer a great deal of value? Kind of a mixed bag there, really. So kind of tending towards kind of less useful, but at the same time, people do have a use for it. Clearly, there's kind of free users there that clearly value it. The name is kind of unsurprisingly super popular. Be weird if it wasn't, so that's good. Last success, again quite popular. Kind of drifting a little bit towards less so, but still kind of overwhelmingly pretty helpful. Last failure, kind of similar result, perhaps a little less useful, so that's interesting. Last duration is just a super mixed bag. Um, build button, people find it really useful. That's fair enough. I myself probably don't use it a great deal. I always kind of go into jobs to build them or just have like CI do it, but that's fair enough. And then we go to like more open-ended questions. So if you could add something to the dashboard table, what would you add? So the very first one was pull request title and number. So that's been implemented now. An average duration. The branch that was built on. So I'm guessing that's the branch that kicked off. A little bit confused there. And then I can already do so. So this should not be changed. Branch, number of tests, warnings, and coverage. Fair enough, yeah. And then any other information that you may find or may feel useful to add. So name, MR values don't make sense. Just display the branch name. And then last success and failure columns could be combined. The link to the associated build is essential, not the time. We really should remove the fixed all view and replace it with user configurable table. The table columns should use a responsive mode, see data tables plugin. When there's not enough space, and the columns should be hidden or alternatively selectable. Sounds very good. Yeah, those are the findings. Thanks for sharing it out, Mark.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I'm glad we got responses. That's good.
Hmm. That's really good.
Any
So have a-
questions from others to Jan? All right.
I'll
Thank
stop
you.
sharing. Great.
Great. And I think since Basil's joined us, I'd like to go back to the content security policy topic if we can, because there was a question we skipped in the discussion. So can you see my screen now, and does it show content security policy?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So Basil, thanks for joining. Bruno gave us a brief summary of sort of the top few things, and we looked at the sheet. What I was hoping we could discuss here was deployment alternatives and ideas that are being bounced around. Are you okay with that discussion, or would you rather we do it some other way?
No, I mean, these are mostly my ideas, so we haven't really started working on this in earnest. But yeah, we've been talking about it a little bit.
So okay, so the maybe Basil, you can give an overview of the challenges that we face in why don't we just turn on restrictive CSP policy immediately for everybody and maybe give some overview of why that would be a terrible experience for users and why we need to think of a phased approach.
Well, if we turned it on unconditionally for everybody today, then we'd lose a significant portion of our users because it wouldn't work. And we don't want to ever do things that drive users away from Jenkins. We're at a stage of our project's life where the adoption is not as rapid as it was in previous years. So we want to do everything possible to preserve our community and our user base. And as a result, we can't do things that are going to be too disruptive to production. So enabling CSP unconditionally today would be quite disruptive to production users. And as a result, we need to start deploying in a more phased approach. And we have a very good example and a lot of experience in the project doing phased deployments through things like Java version upgrades, where those are disruptive changes to some degree. I mean, they require Jenkins administrators to upgrade packages on their agents and Docker images and things like that. So they require action to cross these transitions. Not terribly difficult action, but action nonetheless. And reading documentation and things like that. And we do this pretty regularly. So our users are expecting these Java version upgrades. We write blog posts about them. We show administrative monitors for them, and as a result, our users are we communicate regularly, and people know what to expect. And when it happens, they're prepared for it, and everything goes pretty smoothly as a result. So that seems to be the kind of thing we'd want to do here as well, where we're communicating proactively with our users and helping them to prepare for this transition so that they aren't negatively impacted by it. And in this case, the preparation is basically updating plugins to compatible versions as they're released, which right now there's still a very large number of incompatible plugins. Just like with Java version upgrades, this would be a good time for an early adopter to start using CSP. It would be a bad time for a late adopter to start using it because it's not ready yet. So, and there's going to be a sweet spot somewhere in the middle where people who are in between a late adopter and an early adopter should feel comfortable. But in any case, we don't want to force this deployment onto everyone at the same time. So, so whenever we feel ready to start advertising it more, it would be a good time for early adopters and maybe even middle ground adopters, as long as they're not using any of the plugins that are impacted. So unfortunately for this transition, almost all plugins are impacted. Not quite every single one, but a significant portion of plugins are impacted by this transition, many more than the prototype removal, many more than many other transitions we've done, many more than the Jakarta impact, much more than the I mean, out of all the migrations that I've seen in this community, this is one of the ones that has the greatest surface area. So that's definitely something that we want people. Yeah, tables to divs is another example. It has more impact than that. So huge refactoring, and we want people to make sure that if they are opting into this, that they are not using functionality that is affected by it. So we've bounced around some ideas. So things that have been successful in the past are blog posts to raise awareness. Just clear communication in general. Proactive, clear communication is the most important thing. And we've done things in the past like blog posts. We've done videos with Darren Pope has done videos on YouTube that have been very successful before. So that would be another type of thing that we'd like to do again. Administrative monitors have been pretty moderately successful. We don't want to annoy people too much, so we have to be careful not to raise too many superfluous administrative monitors, but
Mhm.
they are a way that we can reach out to all of our users if we have to. Most likely we'd be doing the administrative monitors when we get closer to mass adoption. Right now it's still, or maybe, if we're planning on switching it on by default by some particular date, we'd want to warn people through the administrative monitors, 6 months in advance of that, or something like that. But I think it's probably a little bit too early to be talking about administrative monitors at this point in time.
Mm.
So, and yeah, the other big open question that I've seen us facing as a group is how do we want to enable this CSP enforcement? So there's currently a plugin, the CSP plugin. It works pretty well. It works in, I don't know, 95% of the time, which is very high, right? There are a few edge cases that it does not cover. So we're not sure how important those are. Certain things like HTML publisher, build monitor view. There's a handful of others that are not covered by the CSP plugin. So there's sort of an open question, like how thorough do we want to be with this? Do we want to actually take this as a prototype and improve this so that it's CSP is enforced every single place 100% of the time? Or is this good enough just to do it 95% of the time or more? So that's sort of one open question. Another open question is, do we want it to continue to be a plugin? Because this could be sort of put into Jenkins core and managed from there. Right now, it is convenient as a plugin because it's very easy to opt in or opt out. You can just uninstall the plugin if you don't like it. It's not hardwired into the core, so that could be seen as an advantage. On the other hand, it could be seen as a slight disadvantage from another perspective. If you think about what it takes to get people to install a new plugin, it's certainly some effort to get people to go install a plugin on all of their controllers. So I don't necessarily see that as a downside, but it's just one of the dimensions of this deployment to consider. So yeah, I guess that's sort of another question. And then these two questions are somewhat related, I think, because if we do want to improve the enforcement, we might have to implement things at a slightly lower layer. But again, I'm not too sure about that because nobody has tried to do it yet. So that would really depend on what we want to do and how it could be implemented, which so far nobody has been focusing on that. But yeah, these are some of the open topics. So overall, I think we are trending toward enabling by default in the long term. But the key is to do it slowly, carefully, and in a way that respects the production deployments of our users, which is going to be a slow process, just like any kind of migration. And ultimately, we want to see our users adopting this technology and being satisfied with it, not rolling back and not being negatively impacted by it. So it's going to take a long time to get there. But hopefully we'll get started on that road soon. The best thing people can do right now is to upgrade all of their plugins as we release CSP compatible versions, because the sooner these compatible plugins get installed, the sooner we can sort of just cross them off the list and stop worrying about them. So that's really the best thing people can do right now. And then eventually when we get closer to a finished state, we can start to talk about advertising, blog posts or administrative monitors or suggested wizard things to try to get people to opt in at somewhat future date, probably in the next month or 2 months, though not that far into the future. I think early adopters should be ready pretty soon, like within the next month. If not today, as long as they're not using affected plugins, and that table is really the best source of truth. So yeah, that's all I had.
Thank you. Questions from others to Basil in terms of CSP deployment choices or deployment alternatives? Yeah, there was So one of my, I guess, questions was around if we did it with a feature flag, that would sort of lobby towards being inside Jenkins core with the compromise then that it's not nearly as convenient as a plugin to opt in or opt out. But feature flag, I think, is what Yahoo UI used or is using now. So there's at least a pattern for it. Any ideas on data collection, or should we worry about data collection in terms of adoption rates to guide any of these decisions, or is that just too painful to bother?
Well, I've never done data collection myself, so I don't know how painful it is. It is
Ah.
documented, but I think so far, very few people have actually tried to do it. I'm sure it's possible, and I'm sure it would help us make better decisions. With plugin, I mean, with data collection would help us to decide things like which plugins are important to make compatible. You know, for example, here's a question that we would have: why are people not migrating? And if we have data that states whether they have it enabled or not and what plugins they have installed, then we'd be able to see, okay, for example, this cohort of users is not enabling it because they have a plugin installed that's not compatible and nobody's working on making it compatible. That's the kind of question we could answer if we had telemetry data for whether or not it's installed and which plugins are installed. So that could be very helpful. Now, how hard it is to collect that, I'm sure it's doable. It's just a matter of writing the code and doing the work. I think it's all documented, and I think we've done it before by we, I mean the community, not necessarily this team. So, yeah, that's certainly doable. You know, even just with the very basic data that we have today, just plug and install counts. You know, we can see how many people have the CSP plugin installed, which is not very many right now because we haven't advertised it yet. So,
Mhm.
but even that very basic information could be used if we do write a blog post or if we do add it to the setup wizard. You know, we would be able to somewhat measure the results by looking at the install count of the CSP plugin 30 days after that. So, you know, we have some rudimentary data already in the form of plugin install counts, but not the fine-grained data that we'd need. Like, yeah, another question would be, like, are people running the plugin in restrictive mode or in report-only mode? So that's something that we couldn't answer easily today without more telemetry. But yeah, I think it would be nice to have.
Good. Thank you. Thanks. Any questions from others? All right. I think that covered all the topics we had for UX SIG meeting today. Any topics that I've missed or topics that need to be brought? Okay, then let's go ahead. I'll stop the recording. Thanks very much for being here. It would help if I clicked the right buttons.